I want to welcome you back to the Spruce Stomper YouTube channel. I haven't forgot about the videos. I want to assure you, shorts are no substitute for full-length content. Today, back to construction. You might recognize the barn. We're essentially going to work towards horse-proofing the front porch on this barn because the naughty critters, they like to sneak up apparently and stand on it from time to time. A little bit of rough cut. Well, heck, enjoy a little carpentry. So it just felt wrong to have all of this manufactured lumber sitting atop all this beautiful Douglas fir rough cut. Look at that. Look at this. Oh, it actually doesn't smell that good. It's been sitting outside, you know. But that great weather look, you can picture. That's gonna be snazzy. We're gonna double up some joists here. And when I say horse proof, I don't recommend letting your farm animals run around on your front porch. But as you can see right in the middle here, there's a nice little ramp that leads up to the door. And what happens is when you're wrestling around the treat bag here in the barn, well, they occasionally like to come up, I guess, and they put a foot or two, not its full weight. The poor thing fell through the 5/8 plywood decking. So I think 2-inch full dimension rough cut and some doubled up joists here, that will be a thing of the past. Will we ever get away from log buildings? I don't think so, and I love it. First thing to do here is the cleanup. Get all these pesky old fasteners out of the way. We got quite the mixed bag here. You got sheathing nails, framing nails, deck screws. Got it all. Oh, Jesus. Man, I'll tell you, I've been renovating so long now as the winter months have drug on that I've darn near lost all my balance. Gonna have to work on that for construction season. Oh, and the phone rings, eh? Never fails. A man in demand. Interruption. Isn't that ironic? I got a phone call from my wife about getting another phone. She's in town. Anybody else have this problem? Oh, it's this, you know, this and that, this much for a new phone. Well, how long is it gonna last? Oh, you know, it's already this old and they're gonna phase this out. Well, like, what? And then you get a refurbished phone. Well, it's refurbished. Well, the phone I'm having issues with, the battery's shit. And it's already as old as the refurbished one you're selling me. Does it have a new battery in it? Nobody knows, right? Just the mystery of cell phones, big mystery. It's, you know, people view it as a necessity, like drinking water now. So they just pay whatever it takes. I'm not in that boat. I'm 2 steps away from going back to a string and a cup. All right, so essentially what is here is a log structure that had this deck added on out the front at some point. From original, because it's sitting on the original foundation. And for folks that aren't familiar, that green wood here, I'll show you the other side, looks like that. It looks just like a framed wall, 16-inch on center, 2x6s. Here in the frozen north, at one point, it was very popular to build pressure-treated wood foundations to set your building atop. So that actually goes down 4 feet. 2x6, 16-inch on center, and then it's sheeted on one side with like a marine grade pressure treated plywood. And we're talking plywood and pressure treating, not what you find at Home Depot today. I'm talking real chemical warfare type gear that actually stands the test of time. And on this property, you'll recognize some of the projects: the Great Flying Truss Roof, goat barn repairs, very sandy soil, so it drains real well. This foundation is in really good shape. I actually dug down almost to the bottom of these sections, and I mean, sound is a pound. It's good to go. And there's not much you can do about it anyways, really. A wood foundation, if you have troubles, digging her up is your only option. This is a good example of why you brace joists. So see down there, it's still got the bracing in them, and then down here it doesn't, and you go, oh, you know, like this has got tons of movement to it. And down there, that takes all the roll out of the joist. Nice, super, super stiff. And I quite like that. It's a little bit more labor to get the angles. You know, if you're not a big fan of math, then square blocking is your friend. But if you got material, you can cut those 2x2s and do that cross bracing. I think it looks real nice, especially in a basement. It's got like a craftsmanship feel. It's way easier to pull joists straight with that versus a square block and fighting it. And once you get them set up, especially you got a miter saw station, you could bang out like dozens of those in like short order. But being that we're only going to be 8-inch on center, we're going to be square block. There is limitations to the angle where it's not conducive. The Sawzall My least favorite tool usually signifies mistake, is what the Sawzall is all about. I was gonna cut the plywood back so I didn't have to notch a bunch of the deck boards, but just the way it's built, I don't think it's very conducive. I need the 2-inch deck to go to the threshold of the old door, because I got to be able to cut the bottom of the door off so it clears when they're an outswing, so it clears the new thicker decking. We're going from 5/8 plywood to 2-inch rough cut. So that had to come all the way in beyond the door threshold, because when the door is shut, you don't want a big gap under the door letting snow and wind and whatnot. And then we're just gonna cut a nice piece of lumber to have like a transition strip here for the wheelbarrows and people's footpath and anyways, and get my rake out here. It's gonna be the last opportunity probably ever in this barn's lifetime that you'd be able to clean all these leaves and stuff out from underneath where the deck was. So got pretty good size piles of leaves there. Now the other reason, not only if you're working for somebody else, but at your own house, and you got covered decks or stuff like that, but you can still access underneath. Man, our fire seasons, they ain't getting any better. You got a big pile of dry leaves hiding underneath your sheds or your house deck, or maybe you got a weird roof line where leaves collect up. You can make an effort to clean them out, because sparking that, you got a big tinder box sitting underneath your shed or your barn, and it's not gonna help you out, because, you know, wind can do funny things. Unless you're joining us from a part of the world where you got creepy critters that bite and sting you, don't be digging around in the leaves maybe then. Leave in the comments where you're watching from. In with some new floor joists. Oh geez Louise, I am rusty with the camera. I feel rusty on the camera too. Remember, gentlemen, remember to crown your lumber. If you don't remember or know what crown means, rainbow shape, right? Crown, the arch faces up, pressure pushes down. Every board's got a curve to it. Some more so than others. Man, I'm so rusty. Forgot a tripod. Embarrassing. Forgot a tripod. Forgot to plug the battery stick into the camera to keep it from going dead. Just a hot mess. I could get a pet elephant now, I think, and probably be okay with this little porch here. But once the seed of doubt has been planted, so in front of the door where its hoof poked through, luckily it didn't fall right through, just poked a hole, but the plywood was on in the wrong orientation. One way plywood is bendy, the other way it is structural and rigid. So it was on the bendy way, and it was on rotten 16-inch center. So you can imagine what's a horse weigh? I don't know. What do you weigh? 1,200 pounds? No, more, less, I have no idea. But on one hoof. Okay, I probably could even trim those a little bit more, to be honest. But that's the machinist in me still. I'm always going for that press fit, you know. I'm missing a sledgehammer too. Look at this baby sledge. Somewhere there's a big one. Oh, down at the shop probably from my other adventures at home. Dunk, done deal. You can see the front of this building has these two support posts here. They were just freewheeling, doing their thing after demo. They don't actually support, well they do, and they don't. Those two beams right there, those are made out of full length, like I think they're 22 foot 2x10s, and there's 1, 2, 3, 5 ply beam that runs all the way back to the center of this building. And in this outside wall, right there, the 1, 2, 3, there's a 6 ply post that runs up and supports that beam where it comes out inside that wall. So it's a cantilever. It's more than strong enough to hold itself up. There's no splice in it. There's no nothing. These, I'm assuming, were a little more for aesthetic and a little bit for support, but there was no foundation under them. So this log originally had nothing underneath of it. It just sat on top of one 2x10 deck joist, and some 5/8 tongue and groove plywood. So for those of you who have built a couple things, even if you just built a few things out of Lego, you'd know that a 1 2x10 on its own with a point load like that, if it was actually supporting any structure, well, it would have broke off in about the first 10 minutes of the building being in existence. But what it did seem to do is want to settle over time. There was a big bow in the deck right there because, you know, from original, these logs would have shrunk and everything would have settled down. And that's where it got its, that big bow. And I just want to avoid that in the future. And you can't just leave a big log like that, even just with its own weight, free swinging no man's land. So it's bolted to that beam. It's cross bolted into this this cross log that supports the upper deck. That is structural, but again, these are cantilevered. These here are cantilevered from the inside. They're full length logs, the full length of the whole building. So that has strength. That has strength, and those cross bolts are really what's holding those up from shooting to the ground. But we couldn't leave it like that now, could we? This is where a guy could use a third arm, but let's go like this. That goes like that. Coming along nicely. I'm not skipping ahead without you, but there's a new trend, I guess, called completion videos. Be careful when you Google search that. People like to see things getting done, and then it was recently put to me, a guy said, I like watching videos, but I don't need to see a guy put on 8 wheel nuts. Show me the first one, show me the last one, I got it, skip forward. So these boards are all about the same. A little fancy scribe action you missed there though, but we got one more to do. I want to show you how a log settler works before we get too far. Look how beefy that is. Why are they so close together, Spruce Stomper? I told you, we're horse proof in this deck, and they're already 16" on center, so there's only one place to beef it up, is to put another one in the middle. But a log settler, essentially, you saw me struggling with, is this little unit. Plate, nut. I gotta put a couple of screws in it. They don't really go anywhere. They actually just come pre-drilled with one plate. And in the case of a log home, the idea of the log settler, typically, you know, posts that hold up a roof structure or a deck, any vertical post, you're gonna get a little shrinkage from the logs that are sitting on top or the timbers and the posts. Wood moves. Let's leave it at that. Wood moves. I don't want to sound like I barely know what I'm talking about here. So the log settler is it's a rated structural piece of hardware. It's got the plate on the bottom, down there at the bottom you can see, and then that plate at the top, and then that adjustable nut. So what that allows you to do is, as the wood shrinks, as the building materials shrink, you can crank that nut and it'll move that plate up and take up the slack. So in the bottom of this post, I drilled 1 1/8" hole. So those are that particular one is a 1-inch rod. I actually think it's rated for 57,000 pounds or something. It's crazy. And then it's just sitting on a concrete block. Like I said, as I explained, these are not structural posts in this scenario. They're like, those are cantilevered beams. They're supporting themselves. They're pinned through this cross tie, and they were, for the last, well, a couple moons ago, this thing was built. These logs have been sitting on nothing that whole time. They're just floating in no man's land. You didn't see the demo, but when I did the demo, you could literally just, the block and the wood that was underneath of it, I just pulled it out by hand. No pressure on it. Long pause. That's okay. Pauses are good when you're videoing. Makes the edit easier. If you fumble, if you're making your own videos and you fumble up a lot, clap. Clap your hands or make a weird noise or pause, a long pause. It gives you good cut points. You know, there you go. Amateur tip. Of course, if you're gonna forget a tripod yesterday, why not just forget it 2 days in a row? That is definitely not set to 5/8 of an inch. All right, take two. Good thing these boards are too long. It's not always perfect, you know. Hard to be a craftsman and a movie producer at the same time, you know. I'll tell you, the struggle. Beautiful. All right, I gotta show you, you'd never believe me. This is the last board. I haven't trimmed it or nothing, and look at that, it dang near fits. I just need this to move over a scooch, so I'm gonna scribe it to this log, trim, and fit. I'd like to pretend that that is pure planning, and I started with a pattern that would work out that way, but it's not. That's dumb luck, and I'll take what I can get. It's nice to remember, you try and keep in mind, when you got a pattern going, these were all 2x10, but we had some 2x12 left over from another project that had to be used up, so I waited and I centered them in front of the door. No one will probably notice, but I will know that instead of just random, there was a bit of plan, you know, so I robbed you of that pleasure too. Just take comfort in the fact knowing that it turned out well and involved a piece of cardboard and a pencil. Craftsmanship. But the entertainment value, low. I'm happy with it. Yeah, beauty. There you go. Solid. Sit out here and have a beer now. So you'd be tempted to use the Sawzall, but then it would tear up the edges of the board, and then out of all these beautiful boards, you'd have one that just looked like crap. So, oh, I'm jammed up. Oh, there you go. One a door, two a door. It all fit back in place. A couple last touches. Got to hang the welcome sign. French cleat on the back of that. Fancy, fancy. Now is the welcome level. That looks good there. I was just precariously hanging by a nail before. And what do we got here? Does this work? Oh, we got a fancy latch. Ah, there you go. See, things get character. Look how worn that is. You know? I'm using the same chunk of 1x4 for years, so it's nice to put her back. Does it work? Look at that. Still works. Nice. One last task. The dreaded wooden bear. It's heavier than it looks, so let's sweep and then we'll wrestle a bear, I guess.